play, Blaine?
I don't think it polite to hear so.
I'm sorry for that, for your sake. I don't play accurately. Anyone can play accurately. But I play with wonderful expression. As far as the piano is concerned, sentiment is my forte. I keep science for life. And speaking of the science of life, have you got the cucumber sandwiches cut for the Lady Branca?
Mr. Earnest Worthing.
Hey, that's my dad!
How are you, my dear Ernest? What brings you to town?
Oh, pleasure, pleasure. What else should bring anyone anywhere? Eating as usual, I see, Algy.
I believe it is customary in good society to take some slight refreshments at 5 o'clock. Where have you been since last Thursday?
In the country.
And what on earth do you do there?
When one is in the town, one amuses oneself. When one is in the country, one amuses other people. It is excessively boring.
And who are these other people you amuse?
Oh, neighbors.
Got nice neighbors in your part of Shropshire?
Perfectly horrid. Never speak to one of them.
How immensely you must amuse them.
Yes, of course. Hello. Why all these cups? Why cucumber sandwiches? Why such reckless extravagance in one so young? Who is coming to tea?
Oh, merely Aunt Augusta and Gwendolyn.
How perfectly delightful.
Yes, that is all very well. But I am afraid Aunt Augusta won't quite approve of your being here.
May I ask why?
My dear fellow, the way you flirt with Gwendolyn is perfectly disgraceful. It is almost as bad as the way Gwendolyn flirts with you.
I am in love with Gwendolyn. I have come up to town expressly to propose to her.
I thought you had come for pleasure. I call that business.
How utterly unromantic you are.
I don't see anything romantic in proposing. It is very romantic to be in love, but there is nothing romantic about a definite proposal. Why, one may be accepted. One usually is, I believe. And then the excitement is all over. The very essence of romance is uncertainty. If ever I get married, I'll be certain to forget the fact.
I have no doubt about that, dear Algy. The divorce court was specially invented for people whose memories are so curiously constituted.
Oh, there's no use speculating on that subject. Divorces are made in heaven. But please don't touch the cucumber sandwiches. They are ordered especially for Aunt Augusta.
Well, you have been eating them all the time.
That one is quite a different matter. She is my aunt. How's the bread and butter? The bread and butter is for Gwendolyn.
And very good.
Gwendolyn is devoted to bread and butter.
And very good bread and butter, too.
Well, my dear fellow, you need not eat as if you were going to eat at all. You behave as if you were married to her already. And I don't think you ever will be.
Why on earth do you say that?
Well, in the first place, girls who never marry the men they flirt with. They don't think it right.
Oh, that is nonsense.
It isn't. It is a great truth. It accounts for the extraordinary number of bachelors that one sees all over the place. In the second place, I don't give my consent.
Your consent?
My dear fellow, Gwendolyn is my first cousin, and before I allow you to marry her, you will have to clear up the whole question of Cecily.
What on earth do you mean, Algy? By Cecily? I don't know anyone by the name of Cecily.
Bring me the cigarette case. Mr. White left in the smoking room the last time he dined here.
Do you mean to say you have had my cigarette case all this time?
Yes, but this isn't your cigarette case. This cigarette case is a present from someone of the name of Cecily. And you said you didn't know anyone of that name.
Well, if you want to know, Miss Cecily happens to be my aunt.
Your aunt?
Yes, a charming lady she is too. Lives at Tunbridge Wells. Just give it back to me, Algie.
But why does she call herself Little Cecily if she's her aunt? Tunbridge Wells. Says here, from Little Cecily with her fondest love.
My dear fellow, what on earth is there in that? Some ants are tall, some ants are not tall. For heaven's sake, give me back my cigarette case.
Yes, but does your aunt call you her uncle? From Little Cecily with her fondest love to her dear Uncle Jack. There is no objection, I admit, to an aunt being a small aunt, but why an aunt, no matter what her size may be, should call her own nephew her uncle? I can't find my notes. Besides, your name isn't Jack at all. It is Earnest.
Isn't Earnest, it's Jack.
You have always told me it's Earnest. I have introduced you to everyone as Earnest. Answer to the name Earnest. You look as if your name was Earnest. You are the most earnestest person looking I have ever saw in my life. And it is perfectly absurd you're saying that your name isn't Earnest.
Well, my name is Ernest in the town and Jack in the country. And the cigarette case was given to me in the country.
Yes, but that does not account for the fact that your small aunt Cecily, who lives at Tunbridge Wells, calls you her dear uncle. Come, old boy, you had better have the thing out at once.
My dear Algie, you talk exactly as if you were a dentist. It is a very vulgar to talk as a dentist when you are not a dentist. It produces a false impression.
Well, that is exactly what dentists do. Now go on! Tell me the whole story. I may mention that I have always suspected you of being a confirmed Bunburyist, and I am quite certain of it now.
Bunburyist? What on earth do you mean by Bunburyist?
I'll reveal to you the meaning of that incomparable expression as soon as you are kind enough to inform me why you are Ernest in town and Jack in the country.
Well, produce my cigarette case first.
Here it is. Now, use your explanation and try to make it improbable.
My dear fellow, there is nothing improbable about my explanation at all. Old Mr. Thomas Cardew made me in his will guardian to his granddaughter, Miss Cecily Cardew. Cecily, who addresses me as her uncle from motives of respect that you could not possibly appreciate, lives at my place in the country, under the charge of her governess, Miss Prism.
Where is that place in the country, by the way?
That is nothing to you, dear boy. You are not going to be invited.
I suspected that, my dear fellow. Now, go on. Why are you Ernest in town and Jack in the country?
My dear Algie, I don't know whether you will be able to understand my real motives. You are hardly serious now. When one is placed in position of guardian, one has to adopt a very high moral tone on all subjects. It's one's duty to do so, and as a high moral tone can hardly be said to conduce very much to either one's health or one's happiness. In order to get up to town, I have always pretended to have a younger brother of the name of Earnest, who lives in Albany, and gets into the most dreadful scrapes. That, my dear Algie, is the whole truth, pure and simple.
You have invented a very useful younger brother called Ernest, in order that you may be able to come up to town as often as you like. I have invented an invaluable, permanent invalid called Bunbury, in order that I may be able to go into town whenever I choose. Bunbury is perfectly invaluable. If it wasn't for Bunbury's extraordinary bad health, for instance, I wouldn't be able to dine with you tonight at Willis's, for I have really been engaged to Aunt Augusta for more than a week.
I haven't asked you to dine with me anywhere tonight.
Oh, I know. You are so absurdly careless about sending out invitations. It's very foolish of you. Nothing annoys people so much as not receiving invitations.
You had much better dine with your Aunt Augusta.
I haven't the smallest intention of doing anything of the kind. She will place me next to Mary Farquhar, who always flirts with her own husband. Off the dinner table. That is not very pleasant. Indeed, it is not even decent. The amount of women in London who flirt with their own husbands is perfectly scandalous. Besides, now that I know you to be a confirmed Bunburyist, I naturally want to talk to you about Bunburying. I want to tell you the rules.
I'm not a Bunburyist at all. If Gwendolyn accepts me, I'm going to kill my brother. Cecily is a little too much interested in him. It is rather a bore. So I'm going to get rid of Ernest, and I strongly advise you to do the same with your invalid friend, who has the absurd name.
Nothing will induce me to part with Bunbury. And if you ever get married, which seems to me extremely problematic, you will be very glad to know Bunbury. A man who marries without knowing Bunbury has a very tedious time of it. Ah, that must be my Aunt Augusta. Only relatives or creditors ever ring the bell in that Wagnerian manner. Now, if I get her out of the way for 10 minutes, so that you can have the opportunity to propose to Gwendolyn, may I dine with you tonight at Willis's?
I suppose so, if you want to.
Yes, but you must be serious about it. I hate people who are not serious about meals. It is so shallow of them.
Lady Bracknell and Miss Fairfax, good sir.
Good afternoon, dear Algernon. I hope you are behaving quite well.
Good afternoon, Aunt Augusta. I am feeling very well.
That is not quite the same thing. In fact, the two things rarely go together.
Dear me, you are smart.
I am always smart. Am I not, Mr. Worthing?
You're quite perfect, Miss Fairfax.
Oh, I hope I'm not that. It will leave no room for development, and I intend to develop in many directions. I'm sorry if we are a little late to Algernon. I was obliged to walk upon Mr. Lady Hartley. I had not been there since her poor husband's death. I never saw a woman so altered. She looks quite 20 years younger. And now, tea and one of those nice cucumber sandwiches that you promised me.
Certainly, Aunt Augusta. Good heavens! Lady, why are there no cucumber sandwiches? I ordered them specially.
There were no cucumbers in the market. I went there twice.
No cucumbers?
No, sir, not even for ready money.
That will do, lady. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I am greatly distressed, Aunt Augusta, about there being no cucumbers. Not even for ready money.
It makes no matter, Algernon, said Lady Hartley, who, it seems to me, is living entirely for your pleasure now.
I hear her hair has turned quite cold from grief.
It changed color. From what cause, I, of course, cannot say. Oh, I have a treat for you tonight, Algernon. I'm going to send you down with Mary Farquhar. She is such a nice woman. So attentive to her husband is a delight to watch.
I am afraid, Aunt Augusta, I shall have to give up the pleasure of dining with you tonight after all. My poor friend Bunbury is very ill again. Basically, seems to think I should be with him.
It's very strange. This Mr. Bunbury seems to have curiously bad health.
Yes, poor Bunbury is a dreadful invalid.
Well, it seems to me Mr. Bunbury ought to make up his mind whether he's going to live or die. He's shallying about the question. It is absurd.
I'll speak to Bunbury, Aunt Augusta, if he is still conscious. But I'll run over the music program I've drawn up, and if you'll kindly go into the next room for a moment.
charming day, hasn't it been, Miss Fairfax?
Pray don't talk to me about the weather, Mr. Worthing. Whenever people talk to me about the weather, I always feel quite certain that they mean something else. And that makes me so nervous.
I do mean something else.
I thought, sir. In fact, I'm never wrong.
And I would like to be allowed to take advantage of Lady Bracknell's temporary absence.
I would certainly advise you to do so. Mamma has a way of coming back suddenly into a room that I have often had to speak to her about.
Miss Fairfax, ever since I met you, I have admired you more than any girl I have ever met since I met you.
Yes, I am quite well aware of the fact. And I often wish that, in public at any rate, we've been more demonstrative. For me, you have always had an irresistible fascination. Even before I met you, I was far from indifferent to you. We live, as I hope you know, Mr. Worthing, in an age of ideals. And my ideal has always been to love someone in the name of Earnest. There is something in that name that inspires absolute confidence. The moment Algernon first mentioned to me that he had a friend called Earnest, I knew I was destined to love you.
You really love me, Gwendolyn?
Absolutely.
Darling, you don't know how happy you get.
That you couldn't love me if my name wasn't Earnest?
But your name is Earnest.
Yes, I know it is. But supposing it was something else, you mean to say you couldn't love me then?
That is clearly a metaphysical speculation. And like most metaphysical speculations, has very little reference at all to the actual facts of real life.
Personally, darling, to speak quite candidly, I don't much care about the name Earnest. I don't think the name suits me at all.
It suits you perfectly. It is a divine name. It has a music of its own. It produces vibrations.
Well, really, Gwendolyn, I must say that I think there are lots of other much nicer names. I think Jack, for instance.
Jack? No. There is very little music in the name Jack, if any at all. Indeed, it does not thrill. It produces absolutely no vibrations. I have known several Jacks, and they all, without exception, were more than usually plain. And the only really safe name is Earnest.
Gwendolyn, I must get christened at once. I mean, we must get married at once.
Married, Mr. Worthing?
Well, surely. You know that I love you, and you led me to believe, Miss Fairfax, that you were not absolutely indifferent to me.
I adore you, but you haven't proposed to me yet. Nothing has been said at all about marriage. The subject has not even been touched on.
Well, may I propose to you now?
I think it would be an admirable opportunity. And to spare you any possible disappointment, Mr. Worthing, I think it only fair to tell you, quite frankly beforehand, that I am fully determined to accept you. Yes, Mr. Worthing. What have you got to say to me?
You know that I've got to say to you.
Yes, but you don't say it.
Gwendolyn, will you marry me?
Of course I will, darling. How long you've been about it? I'm afraid you have had very little experience in how to propose.
My own one. I've never loved anyone in the world but you.
Yes, but men often propose for practice. I know my brother Gerald does. All my girlfriends tell him so. Mr. Worthing! Right, loser! From this semi-recumbent posture. Mamma! I'm not aiming to retire. There is no place for you besides. Mr. Worthing has not quite finished yet. Finished what?
someday you do become engaged to someone, I, or your father, should his health permit him, will inform you of the fact. An engagement should hardly come on a young girl as a surprise. Lessons are unpleasant. But nevertheless. And now, you, Mr. Worthing, I have a few questions for you. And while I am making these inquiries, you, Gwendolyn, will wait for me in the carriage. Mamma! The carriage, Gwendolyn! Gwendolyn, the carriage! Yes, Mamma. Take a seat, Mr. Worthing.
Thank you, Lady Bracknell. I prefer standing.
Ooh. I feel bound to tell you that you are not on my list of eligible young gentlemen. Although I have the same list as the dear Duchess of Bolton. In fact, we work together. However, I am quite ready to enter your name, should your answer be what a really affectionate mother requires. What do you know?
I know nothing, Lady Bracknell.
I'm pleased to hear it. I do not approve of anything that dampers the natural ignorance. The whole theory of modern education is radically unsound. What is your income?
Between 7,000 and 8,000 a year.
In land or in investments?
I have a country house with some land, of course, attached to it. About 1,500 acres, I believe. But I don't depend on that for my real income. In fact, as far as I can make out, the poachers are the only people who can make anything out of it.
How many different wells that can be cleared up by our households? You have a townhouse, I suppose? A girl with a simple, unspoiled nature, like Gwendolyn, cannot be expected to reside in the country.
Well, I own a house in Belgrade Square. What number is in Belgrade?
Yes, what number in Belgrade Square?
149.
The unfashionable side. I thought there was something. However, that could easily be altered.
Do you mean the fashion or the side?
Both, if necessary, I presume. Now, for my things. Are your parents living?
I have lost both my parents.
To lose one parent, Mr. Worthing, may be regarded as a misfortune. To lose both looks like callousness. Who was your father? He was evidently a man of some wealth.
I'm afraid I don't really know. The fact is, Lady Bracknell, I said I had lost my parents. It would be nearer the truth to say that my parents seem to have lost me. I don't actually know who I am by birth. I was found. The late Mr. Thomas College found me and gave me the name of Worthing because he happened to be a first-class ticket for Worthing in his pocket at the time. Worthing is a place in Sussex. It is a seaside resort.
Where did the clerical gentleman who had a first-class ticket to this seaside resort find you?
In a handbag. Yes, Lady Bracknell, I was in a handbag. A somewhat large, black leather handbag, with handles to it. An ordinary handbag, in fact.
In what locality did this Mr. James or Thomas Cardew come across this ordinary handbag?
In the cloakroom at Victoria Station. It was given him in mistake for his own.
The cloakroom at Victoria Station?
Yes, the Brighton line.
The line is immaterial!
May I ask you then what you would advise me to do? I need hardly say I would do anything in the world to ensure Gwendolyn's happiness.
I would strongly advise you, Mr. Worthing, to try and acquire some relations as soon as possible, and to make a definite effort to produce at any rate one parent of either sex before the season is over.
Well, I don't see how I could possibly manage to do that. I can produce the handbag at my moment. It is my dressing room at home. I really think that should satisfy you, Lady Bracknell.
Me, sir? What has it to do with me? You can hardly imagine that Lord Bracknell and I would allow our only daughter to marry into a cloakroom and form an alliance with a pope. Good morning, Mr. Worthing.
Good morning. For goodness sake, Algie, don't sing that ghastly tune. How idiotic you are.
Didn't it go off right, old boy? You don't mean to say that Gwendolyn refused you? I know it is a way she has. She's always refusing people. I think it most ill-natured of her.
Oh, Gwendolyn is right as a trivet, but Mother is perfectly unbearable. I beg your pardon, Algie. I suppose I shouldn't talk about your own hands that way.
My dear boy, I love hearing my relations abused. Relations are simply a tedious pack of people who haven't got the remotest knowledge of how to live, nor the smallest instinct about when to die.
Upon my word, if I thought that, I'd shoot myself. You don't think there's any chance of Gwendolyn becoming like your mother in about 150 years, do you?
All women become like their mothers. That is their tragedy. No man does, and that is his.
Is that clever?
Oh, it is perfectly phrased. And quite as true as any observation in civilized life should be. Did you tell Gwendolyn the truth about your being Earnest in town and Jack in the country?
My dear fellow, the truth is quite the sort of thing one tells to a nice, sweet, refined girl. What extraordinary ideas you have about the way to behave to a woman.
What about your brother? What of the profligate Earnest?
Oh, before the end of the week, I shall have got rid of him. I'll say he died in Paris of apoplexy.
But I thought you said that, Miss Cardew was a little too interested in your poor brother, Earnest. Won't she feel his loss a good deal?
Oh, that is all right. Cecily is not a silly romantic girl, I am glad to say. She has got a capital appetite, goes on long walks, and pays no attention at all to her lessons.
I would rather like to see Cecily.
I will take good care you never do. She is excessively pretty, and she's only just 18.
Have you told Gwendolyn yet that you have an excessively pretty ward who is only just 18?
Oh, one doesn't blurt these things out to people. Cecily and Gwendolyn are perfectly certain to be extremely great friends. I'll bet you anything you like that half an hour after they have met, they will be calling each other sister.
Women only do that when they have called each other a lot of other things first.
Miss Fairfax, sir.
Gwendolyn, upon my honor.
Algie, kindly turn your back. I have something very particular to say to Mr. Worthing.
Really, Gwendolyn, I don't think I can allow this at all.
Algie, You always adopt a strictly immoral attitude towards life. You are not quite old enough to do that.
My own darling.
Ernest, we may never be married. From the expression on Mamma's face, I fear we never shall. But although she may prevent us from becoming man and wife, and I may marry someone else, and marry often, nothing that she can possibly do can alter my eternal devotion to you.
Dear Gwendolyn.
Your Christian name has an irresistible fascination. The simplicity of your character makes you exquisitely incomprehensible to me. Your town address at the Albany I have. What is your address in the country?
The Manor House, Woolton, Hertfordshire.
There was good postal service, I suppose. It may be necessary to do something desperate. That, of course, will require serious consideration. I will communicate with you daily. Algie, you may turn around now.
Thanks, I've turned around already.
You will let me see you to your carriage, my own darling?
Certainly.
I will see Miss Fairfax out.
I will see Miss Fairfax out. Tomorrow, Lane. Tomorrow, I'm going to Bunbury. I am going Bunburying.
Yes, sir.
I'm so afraid that he will look just like everybody else.
He does. You are my little cousin Cecily, I am sure.
You are under some strange mistake. I am not little. In fact, I believe I am more than I'm usually told for my age. But I am your cousin Cecily. You, I see from your card, are Uncle Jack's brother, my cousin Ernest. Very wicked cousin Ernest.
Oh, I'm not really wicked at all, cousin Cecily. You mustn't think I'm wicked.
If you are not, then you have certainly been deceiving us in a very inexcusable manner. I hope you have not been leading a double life, pretending to be wicked and being really good all the time. That would be hypocrisy.
Oh, well, of course, I have been rather reckless.
I'm glad to hear.
In fact, now you mention the subject, I have been very bad in my own
I don't think we should be so proud of that, though. I'm sure it must have been very pleasant.
It is much pleasanter being here with you.
I don't understand why you were here at all. Uncle Jack won't be back till Monday afternoon.
Oh, that is a great I am obliged to go up to the first train on Monday morning. I have a business appointment that I am anxious to miss.
Anywhere that's in London.
No. The appointment is in London.
Ah, well, I know, of course, how important it is not to keep a business engagement, if one wants to retain any sense of beauty in life. But, still, I think you had better wait till Uncle Jack arrives. I know you will want to speak about your immigrating.
My what?
Your immigrating. He is going to buy you an outfit.
Oh, I certainly wouldn't let Jack buy my outfit. He has absolutely no taste in neckties whatsoever.
I don't think you will require neckties. Uncle Jack is sending you to Australia.
Australia? Oh, I'd sooner die.
Well, you said at dinner on Wednesday night that you would have to choose between this world, the next world, and Australia.
Well, the accounts I have received of Australia and the next world are not particularly encouraging. This world is good enough for me, cousin Cecily.
Next, are you good enough for it?
Oh, I'm afraid I'm not. That is why I want you to reform me. You might make that your mission, if you don't mind, Cecily.
I'm afraid I have no time this afternoon.
Oh, well, would you mind my reforming myself this afternoon?
It is rather quixotic of you, but I think you should try.
I will. I feel better already.
You are looking a little worse.
Oh, that is because I am hungry.
How thoughtless of me.
any appetite unless I have a buttonhole first.
Must you help me out?
Oh, no, thank you. I'd sooner have a pink rose.
Why?
Oh! Because you are like a pink rose, Cousin Cecily.
Don't think I'd like you to talk to me like that. Miss Prison never said such things like that to me.
Then Miss Prism is a short-sighted old lady. You are the prettiest girl I ever saw.
Miss Prison says that all good looks are a sin.
They are a sin that every sensible man should fall into.
Oh, I don't think I should like to catch a sensible man. I wouldn't know what to talk to him about. You are much too alone to talk.
Of the primitive church was distinctly against matrimony.
Mr. Worthy?
Mr. Worthing,
This is indeed a surprise. We did not look for you till Monday afternoon.
I have returned sooner than I expected, Dr. Chasuble. I hope you're well.
dear Mr. Worthing, I trust this god of woe does not token some terrible calamity.
My brother.
More shameful deaths and extravagance?
Still leading his life of pleasure.
Dead!
Your brother Ernest, dead.
Quite dead.
I hope we shall profit by it.
Mr. Worthington, I offer you my sincere condolence, and at least the consolation of knowing that you were always the most generous and forgiving of brothers.
Poor Earnest. He had many faults, but it is a sad, sad blow.
Uncle Jack, I am so pleased to see you back. But what horrid clothes you have on. Do not change them. Cecily!
My child.
What is the matter, Uncle Jack? Do look happy. You look as if you were Tuesday, and I have got a surprise for you. Who do you think is in the dining room? Your brother.
Who?
Your brother Ernest. He arrived about half an hour ago.
What nonsense! I haven't got a brother.
Oh, don't say that. However badly he may have behaved toward you in the past, he's still your brother. You couldn't be as heartless as his own. I'll tell him to come out, and you'll shake hands with him, won't you, Uncle Jack?
These are such joyful tidings.
Lost. His sudden return seemed to me peculiar and distressing.
My brother is in the dining room? I don't know what it all means. I think it is perfectly absurd.
Good! Brother John, I have come down from town to tell you that I am very sorry for all the trouble I've given you, and that I intend to lead a better life in the future.
Uncle Jack, you were going to refuse your own brother's hand?
Nothing will induce me to shake his hand. I think his coming down here is disgraceful. He knows perfectly well why.
Uncle Jack, do be nice. There is good in everyone. Ernest has just been telling me about his poor invalid friend, Mr. Bunbury. So good. And surely there must be much good in one who is kind to an invalid and leaves the pleasures of London to sit by a bed of pain.
Oh, he was talking about Bunbury, was he?
Yes, he's told me all about poor Bunbury and his terrible state of health.
Bunbury! Well, I won't have him talk to you about Bunbury or about anything else. It is enough to drive one perfectly frantic.
Of course, I admit that the faults were on my side, but I must say that I think that Brother John's coldness to me is peculiar painful. I expected a more enthusiastic welcome, especially considering this is the first time I have come here.
Uncle Jack, if you don't shake hands with Ernest, I will never forgive you.
Never forgive me.
Never, never, never.
Well, this is the last time I shall ever do it.
It is pleasant, is it not, to see so perfect a reconciliation. I think we might leave the two brothers together.
Cecily, you will come with us. Certainly, Miss Prison. My little task of reconciliation is over.
You young scoundrel! Algie, you must get out of this place as soon as possible. I don't allow any burying here. Your duty as a gentleman calls you back.
My duty as a gentleman has never interfered with my pleasures, even to the smallest degree.
I can quite understand that.
Well, Cecily is darling.
You are not to talk of Miss Carter like that. I don't like it.
Well, I don't like your clothes. You look perfectly ridiculous in them.
Well, will you go if I change my clothes?
Yes, if you are not too long. I never saw anybody take so long to dress, and with such little result.
Well, at any rate, that is better than being always overdressed as you are.
I am occasionally a little overdressed. I make up for it by always being immensely overeducated.
Your vanity is ridiculous, your conduct an outrage, and your presence in my garden is utterly absurd. However, you have got to catch the 4-5, and I hope you will have a pleasant journey back to town. This gun burring, as you call it, has not been a great success for you.
I think it has been a great success. I am in love with Cecily, and that is everything. But I must see her before I go, and make arrangements for another bundering. Ah, there she is.
Oh, I merely came back to water the roses. I thought you were with Uncle Jack.
Oh, he's gone to order the dog cart for me.
Is he going to take you on a nice drive?
Oh, he's going to send me away.
Then we have to part?
I'm afraid so. It is a very painful parting.
It is always painful to part from people whom one has known for a very brief space of time. The absence of old friends one can endure with equanimity. Even a momentary separation from anyone to whom one has just been introduced is almost unbearable.
Thank you.
The dog cart is at the door, sir.
You wait, Merriman, for 5 minutes.
Yes, miss. I hope, Cecily, I shall not offend you if I state, quite frankly and openly, that you seem to me to be in every way the visible personification of absolute perfection.
Get a room. I think your frankness does you credit, Ernest. If you will allow me, I will copy your remarks into my diary.
Do you really keep a diary? I'd give anything to look at it. May I?
No. You see, it is a very simple young girl's record of her own thoughts and impressions, and consequently meant for publication. When it appears in volume 4, I hope you will order a copy. But pray, Ernest, don't stop. I take delight in taking down from dictation. I have reached absolute perfection. You can go on now. I am quite ready for Don't cough, Ernest. When one is dictating, one should speak fluently and not cough. Besides, I don't know how to spell cough.
Cecily, ever since I looked upon your wonderful and incomparable beauty, I've dared to love you wildly, passionately, devotedly, and hopelessly.
I don't think that you should tell me that you love me wildly, passionately, devotedly, hopelessly. Hopelessly doesn't seem to make much sense, does it?
Cecily!
The dog cart is waiting, sir.
Tell it to come around next week at the same hour.
Yes, sir.
Uncle Jack would be very much annoyed if he knew he was staying on till next week at the same hour.
Oh, I don't really care about Jack. I don't care for anyone in the whole world but you. I love you, Cecily. You will marry me, won't you?
Of course, you silly boy. We have been engaged for the last 3 months.
For the last 3 months?
Yes, it will be exactly 3 months on Thursday.
But how did we become engaged?
Well, ever since dear Uncle Jack that you, of course, have formed the chief topic of conversation between myself and this prison. And of course, a man who is much talked about is always very attractive. One feels there must be something in him after all. I dare say it was foolish of me, but I fell in love with you, Ernest.
Darling, and when was the engagement actually settled?
On 14th February last, worn out by your entire ignorance of my existence, I determined to end the matter one way or another, and, after a long struggle with myself, I accepted your dear little truth. The next day, I brought this little ring in your name, and this is a little bangle with the true love knot I promised you wear always.
Did I give you this? It's very pretty, isn't it?
Yes, you have wonderfully good taste, Ernest. It's the excuse I've always given for your leading such a bad life. And this is the little box where I keep your dear letters.
My letters? Oh, for my own sweet Cecily. I have never written any letters.
You need hardly remind me of that, Ernest. I remember only too well when I was forced to write your letters for you. I wrote always 3 times a week, and sometimes oftener.
Oh, do let me read them, Cecily.
Oh, I couldn't possibly. They would make you far too conceited. The 3 you wrote me after I had broken off the engagement were so beautiful and so badly smelled, and even now I can hardly read them without crying a little.
But was our engagement ever broken off?
Of course it was. On the 22nd of last March. You can see it in the entry if you like. Today I broke off my engagement with Earnest. I feel it is better to do so. The weather still continues charming.
Why on earth did you break it off? What had I done? I had done nothing at all. Cecily, I am very much hurt indeed to hear you broke it off, particularly when the weather was charming.
It would hardly be a real serious engagement if it hadn't been broken off at least once. But I forgave you before the week was out.
What a perfect angel you are, Cecily.
Dear romantic. That felt naturally, doesn't it?
Yes, darling, with a little help from others.
I'm so glad.
You will never break off our engagement again, Cecily.
I don't think I could break it off, now that I've actually met you. Besides, of course, there is the question of your name.
Yes, of course.
You must not laugh at me, darling, but it has always been a girlish dream of mine to love someone whose name was Anne. There is something about that name that seems to inspire absolute confidence. I pity any poor married woman whose husband is not named Ernest.
But, my dear child, do you mean to say that you could not love me if I had some other name?
What name?
Oh, any name you like. Algernon.
I don't like the name Algernon.
Well, my own dear, sweet, loving little darling, I really can't see why you should object to the name Algernon. It is not a bad name at all. In fact, it is rather an aristocratic name. Half of the chaps who get into the bankruptcy court are called Algernon. But seriously, Cecily, my name was Algie. Could you love me?
I might respect you, Ernest. I might admire your character, but I fear that I should not be able to give you my undivided attention.
Cecily, your rector is here, I suppose? Thoroughly experienced in practical matters of all the rites and ceremonies of the church?
Oh, yes. Dr. Cruspel's the most learned man. He has never written a single book, so you can imagine how much he knows.
I must see him at once on the most important on the most important business.
Oh.
I shan't be away more than half an hour.
Considering that we have been engaged since February the 14th, and that I only met you today for the first time, I think it is rather hard that you should leave me for so long a period as half an hour. Couldn't you make it 20 minutes?
I'll be back in no time.
What an impetuous boy he is.
Ernest! My own Ernest!
Gwendolyn, darling.
A moment. May I ask if you are engaged to be married to this young woman?
To dear little Cecily? Of course not. What could have put such an idea into your head?
Thank you. You may.
The gentleman whose arm is at present around your waist is my guardian, Mr. John Wood.
I beg your pardon.
This is Uncle Jack.
Jack! Oh!
Here is Ernest.
My own love.
A moment, Ernest. May I ask, are you engaged to be married to this young lady?
To what young lady? Oh, good heavens, Gwendolyn!
Yes, to good heavens, Gwendolyn. To Gwendolyn.
Of course not. What could have put such an idea into your pretty head?
Thank you. You may.
I felt there was some slight error in this party. The gentleman who is now embracing you is my cousin, Mr. Algernon Moncrief.
Algernon Moncrief. Are you called Algernon?
I cannot deny it.
Oh, is your name really John?
I could deny it, if I liked. I could deny anything if I liked. But my name is certainly John. It has been John for years.
A gross deception has been practiced on both of us. My poor wounded Cecily! My sweet Robin! You will call me sister, will you not?
There is just one question. I would like to be allowed to ask my guardian.
An admirable idea. Mr. Worthing, there is just one question I would like to be permitted to put to you. Where is your brother Ernest? We are both engaged to be married to your brother Ernest. So it is a matter of some importance to us to know where your brother Ernest is at present.
Gwendolyn, Cecily, it is very painful for me to be forced to speak the truth. It is the first time in my life that I have ever been reduced to such a painful position. And I'm really quite inexperienced in doing anything of the kind. However, I will tell you quite frankly that I have no brother. I have no brother at all. I never had a brother in my life, and I certainly have not the smallest intention of ever having one in the future.
No brother at all.
None.
Have you never brother of any kind?
Never. Not even of any kind.
I'm afraid it is quite clear, Cecily, that neither of us is engaged to be married to anyone.
It is not a very pleasant position for a young girl suddenly to find herself in.
Let us go into the house. They will hardly venture to come after us there.
No, men are so cowardly, aren't they?
This ghastly state of things is what you call one burning, I suppose.
Well, a perfectly wonderful Bunbury it is. The most wonderful Bunbury I've ever had in my life.
I wanted to be engaged to Gwendolyn. That is all. I love her.
Well, I simply wanted to be engaged to Cecily. I adore her.
There is certainly no chance of your marrying Miss Cardew.
I don't think there is much likelihood, Jack, of you and Miss Fairfax being united.
Well, that is no business of yours.
If it was my business, I wouldn't talk about it. But it's rather very vulgar to talk about one's business. Only people like stockbrokers do that. At any rate,
How can you sit there, calmly eating muffins, when we are in this horrible trouble? I can't make out. You seem to be perfectly heartless.
Well, I can't eat muffins in an agitated manner, but I would probably get on my cuffs. One should always eat muffins quite calm. It is the only way to eat them.
Algie, I wish for goodness you would go.
Oh, you can't possibly ask me to go without having some dinner. It's absurd. I never go without my dinner. No one ever does, except vegetarian people like that. Besides, I have just made arrangements with Dr. Chasuble to be christened at 5:45 under the name of Earnest.
My dear fellow, the sooner you give up that nonsense, the better. I have made arrangement this morning with Dr. Chasuble to be christened myself at 5:30. And I naturally will take the name of Earnest. Gwendolyn would wish it. We can't both be christened Earnest. It's absurd. Besides, there is no evidence at all that I've ever been christened by anybody. I should think it extremely improbable, probable I never was. And so does Dr. Chasuble. It is entirely different in your case. You have already been christened.
Yes, but I've not been christened for years.
Yes, but you have been christened. That is the important thing.
Quite so. So I know my constitution can stand it. If you are not quite sure about your ever having been christened, I must say I think it's rather dangerous you are venturing on it now. It might make you very unwell. You can hardly have forgotten that one very closely connected with you was very nearly carried off this week in Paris by a severe chill.
Yes, but you said yourself that a severe chill was not hereditary.
It used to be, I know, but I dare say it is now. Science is wonderful at making improvements in things.
Oh, that is nonsense. You were always talking nonsense.
Jack, you are at the muffins again. What is it? There are only 2 left. I told you I was particularly fond of muffins.
But I hate tea cake.
Why on earth then do you allow tea cake to be served for your guests? What idea do you have of hospitality?
Algernon, I already told you no. I don't want you here. Why don't you go?
I haven't eaten that tree yet! And there is still 1 month left!
They have been eating muffins. That looks like repentance.
You don't seem to notice this at all. Couldn't you cough? I haven't got a cough. You're looking at us. What is that true?
They're approaching.
It's very forward of them. Let us observe a dignified silence.
Certainly. That is the only thing to do now.
This dignified silence seems to produce an unpleasant effect.
A most distasteful one.
But we will not be the first to speak.
Certainly not.
Mr. Worthing, I have something very important to ask you. Much depends on your reply.
Gwendolyn, your common sense is invaluable. Mr. Moncrief, kindly answer me the following question. Why did you pretend to be my guardian's brother?
In order that I might have the opportunity of meeting you.
That certainly seems like a satisfactory explanation, does it not?
Yes, dear, if you can believe him.
I don't. But that does not affect the wonderful beauty of his answer.
True. In matters of grave importance, style, not sincerity, is the vital thing. Mr. Worthing, what explanation can you offer to me for pretending to have a brother? Was it in order that you might have an opportunity of coming up to town to see me as often as possible?
Can you doubt me, Miss Fairfax?
I have the greatest doubts of one subject. But I intend to crush those. This is not the moment for German skepticism. Their explanations appear to be quite satisfactory. especially Mr. Worthing's. That seems to me to have the stamp of truth on it.
I am more than content with what Mr. Moncrief said. His voice alone inspires on absolute certainty.
Then, you think we should forgive her?
Yes. I mean, no.
True, I had forgotten. I had forgotten there are principles that state that one cannot surrender. Which of us should tell them? The task is not complete.
Will we both not speak at the same time?
An excellent idea! I nearly always speak at the same time with other people. Will you take the time for me?
So,
Our Christian names are still an insuperable barrier. That is also all.
Our Christian names? Is that all? But we are going to be christened this afternoon.
For my sake, you are prepared to do this terrible thing?
I am.
please me. You're ready to face this fearful ordeal?
I am.
How absurd to talk of the equality of the sexes, where a question of self-sacrifice are concerned, men are infinitely beyond us.
They have moments of physical courage which we women know absolutely nothing about.
Darling!
Lady Bracknell.
Good heavens!
What is the meaning of this?
Merely that I am engaged to be married to Mr. Worthing, Mamma.
Come here. Sit down. Sit down immediately. Education of any kind shows a mental decay. In the young, evidence physical weakness in the old. Apprised, sir, of my daughter's disappearance. I am a trusty maid whose confidence I purchased by a small void. I followed her at once on a luggage. Of course, you clearly understand that all communication with yourself and my daughter must immediately from this point.
I am engaged to be married to Gwendolyn, Lady Bracknell.
I do not know whether there is anything peculiarly exciting in the air of this particular area of Hertfordshire, but the number of engagements that seem to go on seems to me to be considerably above the proper average that statistics have laid down for our guidance. I think some preliminary inquiry on my part would not be out of place. Mr. Worthing, is Miss Cardew at all connected with any of the large railway stations? Yesterday, I had no idea that there were any families or persons whose origin was at terminus.
Miss Cardew is the granddaughter of the late Mr. Thomas Cardew of 149 Belgrave Square, SW, Gervase Park, Dorking, Surrey, and Esperan, Fifeshire, NT.
As a matter of form, Mr. Worthing, I'm going to ask you if Miss Cardew has any fortune?
Oh, about £130 in funds. That is all. Goodbye, Lady Bracknell. So pleased to have seen you.
Oh no! Mr. Worthing. £130. £130,000. And in the funds! This Cardew seems to me a most attractive young lady. Now that I look at her, few girls of the present day have any really solid qualities, any of the qualities that last and improve with time. very high. Algernon.
Yes, Aunt Augusta.
There are distinct social possibilities in this profile.
Cecily is the sweetest, dearest, prettiest girl in the whole world. I don't care two pence about social possibilities.
Never speak disrespectfully in society, Algernon. Only people who can't get into it do that. Dear child, of course you know that Algernon has nothing but his debts to depend upon. I do not approve of mercenary marriages. When I married for a brat, I had no fortune of any kind, but I never dreamed of allowing that to stand in my way. Well, I suppose I must give my consent.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
Cecily, you may kiss me.
You better kiss her.
Thank you, Lady Bracknell. You may also call me Aunt Augusta.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
The marriage, I think, had better take place quite soon.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
Yes, to be quite frank here, I am not in favor of long engagements to give people the opportunity of finding out each other's character. Not at all. I would never.
I beg your pardon for interrupting you, Lady Bracknell, but this engagement is quite out of the question. I am Miss Carter's guardian, and she cannot marry without my consent until she comes of age. That consent I absolutely decline to give.
Upon what grounds, may I ask?
If
Algernon is an extremely, I may almost say, an ostentatiously eligible young man. He has nothing, but he looks everything. He wants more than one desire.
to be frank with you, Lady Bracknell, about your nephew, but the fact is that I do not approve at all of his moral character. I suspect him of being untruthful.
Untruthful? My nephew, Algernon? Impossible! He is an Oxonian.
I fear there can be no possible doubt about that. This afternoon, during my temporary absence in London, on an important question of romance, he obtained admission to my house by means of the false pretense of being my brother. Under an assumed name, he drank, I've just been informed by the butler, an entire pint of my best wine. Wine I was specially reserving for myself. Continuing his disgraceful deception, ensnared the affections of my only ward, he subsequently stayed to tea and devoured every single muffin. And what makes his conduct all the more heartless is that he was perfectly well aware from the first that I have no brother, that I never had a brother, and that I don't intend to have a brother. Not even of any kind. I distinctly told him so myself, yesterday afternoon.
Mr. Word, after careful consideration, I have decided entirely to overlook my nephew's conduct to you.
That is very generous of you, Lady Bracknell. My own decision, however, is unalterable. I decline to give my consent. You see, she's only newly 18. Her grandfather stipulated that she remain unwed until the dawn of her 35th year.
Algie, could you wait for me till I was 35?
Of course I could, Cecily. You know I
Yes, I felt it instinctively. But I wouldn't wait all that time. I hate waiting even 5 minutes for anybody. It always makes me rather cross. I'm not pushing myself, I know, but I do like punctuality in others. And waiting, even to be married, is quite out of the question.
could. Then what is to be done, Cecily?
I don't know, Mr. Moxley.
Dear Miss Word, as Miss Carter states positively that she cannot wait until she is 35, a remark which I am bound to say seems to me to show a somewhat impatient nature. I would beg of you to really consider your decision.
But my dear Lady Bracknell, The matter is entirely in your own hands. The moment you consent to my marriage with Gwendolyn, I will almost gladly allow your nephew to form an alliance with my ward.
You must be quite aware that what you propose is out of question.
Then a passionate celibacy is all that any of us can look forward to.
That is not the destiny I chose for Gwendolyn. Algernon has mentioned myself. Come, dear. We have already missed 5, if not 6 trains. Miss another would expose us to comment on the path.
Everything is ready for the christenings.
The christening, sir? Is that not quite premature?
Sure, these gentlemen have expressed a desire for an immediate baptism.
At their age? The idea is grotesque and unreligious. Algernon, I forbid you from being baptized.
I to understand that there are to be no christenings this afternoon.
I don't think that, as things are now, it would be of much more practical value to either of us, Dr. Chaswell.
I am grieved to hear such sentiments from you, Mr. Worthing, the savor of the heretical views of the Anabaptists, views that I have completely refuted in 4 of my unpublished sermons. However, as your present mood seems to be one particularly secular, I will return to the church at once. Indeed, I have just been informed by the pew opener that for the last hour and a half, Miss Prism has been waiting for me in the vestry.
Miss Prism? Did I hear you say Miss Prism?
Yes, Lady Bracknell, I'm on my way.
Pray allow me to detain you for a moment. Is this Miss Prism a female of repellent aspect, remotely connected to education?
She is most cultivated of the ladies. The very picture of respectability.
It is obviously the same person. May I ask what position she holds in your household?
I am a celibate, madam.
Miss Prism, Lady Bradford, has been for the last 3 years Miss Carter's esteemed governess and valued companion.
In spite of what I hear, I must see her at once. Let her be sent for.
She approaches. She's mad.
I was told you expected me in the vestry, dear Canon. I have been waiting there for you for an hour and 3/4.
Prism! Come here, Prism. Prism, where is that baby? Where? You left Lord Bracknell's house, number 104, up in Brosden Street, in charge of a perambulator that contained a baby of the male sex. You never returned. A few weeks later, the perambulator was discovered standing by itself in a remote corner of Bayswater, but the baby was not there. Where is that baby? Prism?
Lady Bracknell, I admit with shame that I do not know. I only wish I did. The plain facts of the case are these. On the morning of the day you mentioned, a day that is forever branded in my memory, I prepared as usual to take the baby out in the perambulator. I had also with me a somewhat old but capacious handbag for which I had intended to place my writings and romantic mental abstraction. For which I can never forgive myself, I deposited the writings in the bassinet and placed the baby in the handbag.
But where did you deposit the handbag?
Oh, do not ask me, Mr. Worthing.
Miss Prism, this is a matter of no small importance to me. I insist on knowing where you deposited the handbag that contained the infant.
I left in the cloakroom of one of the larger railway stations in London.
What railway station?
Victoria. The Brown Line.
I must retire to my room for a moment. Gwendolyn, wait for me here.
If you are not too long, I will wait for you here all my life.
What do you think this means, Lady Brown?
I dare not say. I need hardly tell you that families I conjure strange coincidences are not supposed to occur. They are hardly considered the thing. Uncle Jack seems strangely agitated.
Your guardian is very emotional nature.
The noise is extremely unpleasant. It sounds as if you're having an argument. I dislike arguments of any kind.
That's not now.
I wish you would arrive at some conclusions.
This suspense is terrible.
I hope it will last.
In this handbag, Miss Prism, examine it carefully. Is it the handbag? Before you speak, examine it very carefully. The happiness of more than one life depends on your answer.
It seems to be mine. Here, on the lock are my initials. I had forgotten that in an extravagant mood, I had a place there. The bag is undoubtedly mine. I'm delighted to have it so unexpectedly restored to me. It has been a great inconvenience being without it all these years.
Miss Prism, more is restored to you than the handbag. I was the baby you placed in it. Yes, mother!
Mr. Warren! I am unmarried.
Unmarried? I do not deny that this is a serious blow. But after all, who has the right to cast a stone against one who has suffered? Cannot repentance wipe out an act of folly? Why should there be one law for all men and another for women? Mother, I forgive you.
Mr. Worthing, there must be some error. There is the lady who can tell you who you really are.
Lady Bracknell, I hate to seem inquisitive, but would you kindly inform me who I am?
I'm afraid that the news I have to give you will not altogether please you. You are the son of my poor sister, Mrs. Montgomery, and consequently, Algernon's elder brother.
Did I have a brother after all? I knew I had a brother. I always said I had a brother. Cecily, how could you have ever doubted that I had a brother? Dr. Chasuble, my unfortunate brother. Miss Prism, my unfortunate brother. Gwendolyn, my unfortunate brother. Algie, you young scoundrel, you will have to treat me with more respect in the future.
Well, not today, old boy, I admit. I did my best, however, though I was out of practice.
My own. But what on are you? What is your Christian name, now that you have become someone else?
Good heavens! I had quite forgotten that point. Your decision on the subject of my name is irrevocable, I suppose?
I never change, except in my affections.
those nations have Gwendolyn.
Then the question had better be cleared up at once. Aunt Augusta, a moment. At the time when Miss Prism left me in the handbag, had I been christened already?
Every luxury that money could buy, including christening, had been lavished upon you by your doting, fond parents.
Then I was christened, that is settled. Now what name was I given? Let me know the worst.
Being the eldest, you were naturally christened after your father.
Yes, but what was my father's Christian name?
I cannot presently recall what the general's Christian name was. I have no doubt that he had one. He was eccentric, I admit. Very elated. And that was the result of the Indian climate and marriage, indigestion, and other things that happened.
Algie, can't you recollect what our father's Christian name was?
My dear boy, we were never even on speaking terms. He died before I was a year old.
His name would appear in the army list of the period, I suppose. Aunt Augusta?
His name, yes, the general was essentially a man of peace, except domestically. But I have no doubt that his name would get in any military directory.
The army lists of the last 40 years are here. These delightful records should have been my constant study. M. Generals, Malum, Maxbone, Magley. What ghastly names they have. Markby, Migsby, Moms, Moncrief, Lieutenant 1840, Captain Lieutenant Colonel, Colonel, General 1869, Christian names. Earnest John! I always told you, Gwendolyn. My name was Earnest, didn't I? Well, it is Earnest after all. I mean, it naturally is Earnest.
Yes, I remember now that the general was called Earnest. I had some particular reason for disliking that name.
Ernest! My own Ernest! I felt from the first that you could have no other name.
Gwendolyn, it is a terrible thing for a man to find out suddenly that all his life he has been speaking nothing but the truth. Can you forgive me?
I can, for I feel sure that you are to change.
My own one.
Patrick! At last!
Cecily, at last!
You seem to be displaying signs of triviality.
On the contrary, Aunt Augusta, I've now realized for the first time in my life the vital importance of being earnest.